Peace be upon you. How are you today? I am fine, thank God. Today we will watch a series called Min that was made in 2024 and is one of the Scientific Uncle series. This is because the hero is a child and has the ability to change his appearance and become like anyone, even a girl. While you are watching, you will say, if only I had the ability. When I was young, I didn't know how to benefit from it. The child in the series faced an existential crisis about who he wanted to be, and I don't know why a child would face an existential crisis at this age or how he even knew what it meant. The important thing is that the series is good. After I watched the summary, if you feel that you like the series or that this is one of the series, you can write in the comments what series or movie you want to see made in the coming period, and the comment that gets the most likes will be summarized in the coming period. Or if you want to enter the Muhammad Taher fans group on Facebook, and the link, you will find it in the description. You can do in this group memes as you wish, and I hope that we make series or films based on your suggestions so that we do not upset people. May God keep us for you. Let's start the series. The series begins with a 12-year-old boy named Ben, who is sitting in the classroom at the time, looking out the window, absent-minded and unlucky. At that moment, his classmate Jason is annoying their classmates, so Ben decides to trip, and he is walking, and because Jason is evil, he runs after Ben and his friends to beat him up. So Ben runs away from him and hides in the bathroom and closes the door on him. But when Jason opens the door, he is shocked that the one in front of him and his friend Lenar is not Ben, and he shakes it that Ben has a strange and unique supernatural ability, which is that he can transform into the form of any Ben. Adam is the second, and we go back in time 5 weeks and we see Elizabeth, Ben's mother at that time, proposing to him at the middle school, and Ben appears to be nervous and anxious, and a boy named Kay comes and gets to know him and clears his safe in which he will put. He is at home eating with his family, and we learn that his mother is married to a man named Phil, and he has a daughter named Max in the same school that Ben goes to. At that moment, Elizabeth asks Ben about his first day at school. At that moment, Jason is the one who pushes him and his camera that he promised, and it broke, and he lies to his mother and tells her that his day was nice, so he kisses the elephant, his daughter Max, if she took care of Ben as he asked her to, so she smiles and replies. At night, Ben has insomnia and can't sleep, so he goes down to the kitchen and opens the fridge and is shocked when he finds Max in the kitchen. He knows that she doesn't know. She sleeps like him and asks why he didn't tell his mom what happened to him at school with Jason, so he pretends that he doesn't want to upset his mom or make her worry about him, so he sits next to Max and takes her headphones to listen to the song she listens to. It becomes clear that he doesn't like this type of song, so Max sits with him and tells him that he has to decide what he likes and what he wants to be. The next morning, Elizabeth prepares breakfast for Ben and Max, but Max takes her food and leaves without waiting for Ben. When Ben wakes up, Elizabeth and Phil are scared because what is in front of them is not between them, and they asked him how he entered the house and if he was Ben's friend. Ben was surprised by her question, and we know that Ben is currently in the form of his colleague, and he is shocked because his mother does not know him because he does not know that his appearance has changed, and he keeps telling his mother that he is her son. But Elizabeth gets scared with Phil, and she goes to Ben's room so that she can see him, but she can't find him. At that moment, Ben runs out of the house, very scared, and licks her before she enters the school. She knows that he is Ben, so she smiles at him. They know that this is a silly prank because she thinks he was her classmate, but Ben tries to remind her of their rule together. At night in the kitchen, suddenly she believes that Kenny is behind him and takes Ben away so that no one notices what happened. She asks Ben how. She is trying to convince Kenny that he is crazy and doesn't know how this happened. She tries to give him her mobile phone because he doesn't have his mobile phone with him because she has to attend her class, or else the principal will call Dad, and then Ben will be sitting in the school garden, and he realizes that his mom and Bill are calling Max's mobile and sending her many messages asking about him. And after a while, Bella and his mom and Bill arrived at the school, and they are talking to Max about him, so Ben gets very nervous and walks from the school so that no one sees him because they inform the police and they have the shorts with them. Then he goes to another garden and sits on the swing. Suddenly, he finds a girl next to him who suddenly appeared and talks to him. They find out that her name is Carter. The strange thing is that she knows that he is Ben, but in a different way. Kenny tells him that she was like him before and that he needs to calm down and reassure himself so that things stay under control. Suddenly, she disappears. At night, Max tells Elizabeth and Phil about Jason and what he did on his first day with Ben at school, and that he refused to say anything so as not to upset them. Elizabeth gets upset at the time, and at the same time, this is between walking in the street and it is raining, and we find him looking normal again, and suddenly he finds Dan's shorts in front of him and takes him with him in his car to take him home, and he tries to find out from him why he ran away from home and what is the matter with the pajamas he is wearing, because these are the same pajamas he saw Kane wearing in the garden. Today, at the same moment, Ben hears the words that Carter told him on the radio. Then Ben returns home and Elizabeth comes eagerly and lovingly. When he sits with her and Phil, he tells them that he doesn't want to lie to them. At night, Ben gives Limax her mobile phone, and it appears that Max wants to help Ben and be by his side. At Darren's house, we find a picture of Carter, and he discovers that she is his daughter and looks at the picture sadly. The next next day, Max tries to help Ben and invent recipes that will prevent him from transforming into something else or controlling the transformation, but all methods fail and she tries ice and water. The cold and the cold are useless, and Ben tried a lot to control the transformation, but he couldn't. And then the policeman Darren goes to Ben's house and asks his mother to talk to him a little, and then he tells him that he asked Kenny if he was in the garden yesterday in his pajamas, but he denies it completely, and his house is Ben. But it appears that he is calm and peaceful. He has a house. If he saw a girl in the garden, he would lie and say that he wasn't in the garden and didn't see anyone. Then he would show them a picture of a strange symbol and ask them if they had seen this symbol before. Then he would turn around and leave and walk quickly. At school, they would be surprised that he was in the garden yesterday in pajamas, and this did not happen. And he tells him about what Max did to protect him from Jason's harm and bullying, which is that she gave Jason her headphones, and Ben believes him and is upset because he knows that Max loves her headphones. And Ben hears his mother talking to Phil, and they bring up Darren's shorts and how much he suffered in raising his daughter Carter after his wife's death. And here it explodes that she becomes Darren's daughter. The next morning at school, she sees Max Jason bullying and harassing a student, so she tries to be close to Ben so that he won't be alone. At that moment, he asks her why she gave Jason her headphones, so she gives him only 1 week. At that same moment, he asks her about us, about Carter. He left her. He hadn't seen her for a long time because she left school and entered a boarding school, so he was surprised and told her that he saw her when he was in the garden. This made Max surprised, and they knew that this was impossible. Then he left to his colleague Owen because he saw Jason throwing food at him and dirtying his clothes, so Owen tells him that his father always tells him that he has to face anything that bothers him, but he doesn't know how to do that. Then Ben and Max see Jason knocking Owen down and bothering him, and at that moment Ben gets very angry and suddenly his appearance changes. Owen takes Max aside, and you know that he has to hide until he looks normal again in Beirut. After that, he goes to the garden where he meets Carter and keeps calling her a lot. At that moment, Darren comes and asks him how he knows his daughter. Of course, he talks to him as if he is Owen, and he is worried and wants to know if his daughter is okay or not. Because he hasn't seen her for 2 years, there's a rift between them, and he understands that Carter didn't go to boarding school like Max said, and Darren tells him at the time that 2 years ago there was a very strong storm in the city, and the electricity went out in the entire city, and at the same time, his daughter entered the middle of the storm and disappeared, and suddenly the storm calmed down completely and everything returned to normal. It was a girl and the storm stopped. Then he decided to walk with her because he knew she was in danger and saw a strange symbol that he did not know what it was. At that moment, he ran and walked quickly because it seemed that he would return to normal again. After a while, we see Ben controlling his ability and being able to transform into anyone he wants at the time he wants, and he sees Carter in front of him all the time, and suddenly he bumps into a strange young man wearing a bracelet with the symbol mark on it at school, and he sees Ben Jessen returning the headphones to Max, and this means that his immunity has ended. And then he sees Jason keeps hurting Owen all the time, making him drop food on him and putting a bet on him in his safe, which makes Ben very upset because of Owen. When Ben and Max leave school, they find Darren on their way, and he talks to them for a while, and then Ben notices there is a notebook in his car with many drawings of the symbol. At home, Ben is alone with Bill because his mother and Max went out to the mall together to buy clothes. He prepares food together at that time, and suddenly Ben's voice changes and becomes like Phil's voice, which makes Phil very surprised. At the same time, Max is upset at the mall from Elizabeth because she calls her Maxine, not Max, because that's the name her mother, Julia, used to call her. And when they get back home, Max goes to her room and she's still upset, and he comes out to her between her food, so she eats. And at that time, Max talks to him, and they know that she loves his mother, but she doesn't want her to take her mother's place because his mother is still here. So he tells her that he is talking to his mother, and then Max asks him if he is doing this to him to help him protect Owen, so he thanks her that she can read his thoughts without him saying anything. The next day at school, Jason discovers that someone has put in his safeties. I doubt that Owen did this, but at the same time, Max entered to protect Owen from him, but by bad luck, the supervisor sees her and thinks that she did the strangulation and takes him to the principal's office and takes Max out of the principal's office. Nelson is upset because he is going to call Dad and tell him what happened. This will cause her problems, so Ben decides to help her. At home, Ben keeps his eyes on Phil's phone so that as soon as it rings, he answers it. He is able to change his voice into Phil's voice and talks to Nelson, lying to him and telling him that he knows that his daughter made a mistake and agrees to punish her. The next day, Ben, on her way to school, Carter appears to him and talks to him, telling him that he is wasting his abilities for nothing, so he gets out of it because she is hiding, and she shows her father a strange symbol and leaves him looking for her, so he leaves her. She was as if she was in a hurry and wanted to know the answers quickly, and at that moment she opened the door to a disaster, which is the storm, and her father thinks that she is the one who stopped her, but in reality she is the one who caused it, and she does not want Ben to make her mistake, and she tells him that they have to test his abilities, and then she will answer all his questions, and suddenly Carter disappears, and then Darren sees a heart drawing in the notebook in which he drew the symbols, and he understands at that time that that Carter is the one who drew it to let him know that she is by his side. And around him, the days pass and Ben tries to find anything on the internet about the storm and Carter. Then he goes with his mom and Phil to the mall and they take pictures with them at the same table and eat together. Unluckily, Jason pretends to be perfect and a good person in front of people, so he claims that he needs tissues, but Jason follows him and gets angry with him. He and his family leave him alone and go back to his family again. After that, he calls Max to tell her what happened and that her father and mother think that Jason is a nice and polite boy. Suddenly, Ben decides to expose Jason and show everyone his true identity. He is the biggest bully in the world and Max is hurting me and watching Jason to film him while he drops food on Un, but unfortunately, Ben doesn't catch up and Un is very upset and angry about what happens to him every day, and suddenly while Ben is talking to him, he feels that he is transforming, and the surprise is that this time he transforms into Jason and goes to Max and tells her what happened to him was very strange, that he tried to get to Jason because that meant that he sympathized with him or that there was a connection between them. At that moment, Max asked him to stay away from her because she did not want the students to think that she and Jason were friends, so she decided to take advantage of what happened to make Jason appear weak and go to Nerdell to bully him, and at that time, Max stands up to him and threatens him, so that Jason is afraid of Max, and suddenly On decides at the wrong time to be brave and defend himself and hits Jason, but in reality, he hits Ben and Bev, Ben and Bella in the hospital, and his mother treats him because she works as a doctor, and he knows that he is still in Jason's form, and writes that his mother is teasing Jason and telling him that she knows that he is the one who broke her son's camera, and she does not believe the role of the innocent angel that he is playing, and at that moment, he runs away from him so that he can return to his normal form again, and when Ben returns home, he is happy because Phil bought him the things he needed for his room, the development that he wants to do, and at that time, his mother arrives at the house and tells them that Jason was with her in the emergency room today, and she tells Ben to warn him about Jason, so he opens her ears because he understood and knew that she is defending him and will protect him, and after that, Max talks to Jason, and they know that she found a video of the storm, and it appears inside it a woman standing firmly, so Ben, I wonder between then and the next day, Ben and Max decide to go to the building where the woman they saw in the video appeared, and at that moment, Max remembers that she has an appointment with her mother, so she takes Ben to the library where she works, and we know that today is a holiday. Max's birthday, and his mother has arranged a birthday party for her to celebrate with her father and only her, and this bothers us because Julia's words to Max's mother mean that she doesn't want him and his mother to be there, so Max stays with Ben and apologizes to him. At night, Ben and his mother go out to a fancy restaurant in the check-in desk to have dinner together, and this restaurant is in front of the building. The woman appeared in the video, and it was then understood that this was the restaurant where Max, her mom, and dad would sit, and it was harmful for them to sit together at the same table, and Ben started to withdraw in order to leave the restaurant, and Max did the same at that time, and all of this so that they could enter the building together and reach the apartment where the woman appeared in the video. Suddenly, when Ben looks out the window, he finds the symbol drawn on the ground of the street. At the same moment, the apartment owners return to the house, so Ben and Max hide, afraid that someone will see them. At that moment, Ben is able to transform into the form of Ben, the owner of the house, whose name is Enzo, so that he can get out of the house. It's Max easily, and when Max returns to the restaurant, he asks her about her father and Elizabeth in surprise. Where did she and Ben go? She starts to panic and doesn't know what to say. At the same time, Ben enters with Kiki because it's Max's birthday and sings to her. While Max is making her wish before blowing out the candles, Ben notices that she cries, and when they leave the restaurant, Ben asks Max if she's okay, and Max tells her to go with her mother and spend the night with him today. At home, Max reacts that there is a letter in her room, and when she opens it, she discovers that it is from Carter. The next morning, Max tells Ben about the letter that she received from Carter, and it was a newspaper page with a picture of the woman they saw in the video and another woman in the picture with her, and they know her name is Morgan. Then they find Max Leonard coming to talk to her, but they discover that he is Ben, and they know that it is not right for him to change into the form of one of their colleagues every now and then, so they realize that Jason is bothering him and he was forced to do this to escape from him, but Max thinks that this is not possible because Leonard has the right to know that there is a game like this. At home, Ben and Max sit in the dark room and there are many pictures in front of them and they try to know who Morgan is. At that moment, Ben notices something strange in the pictures, which is that Morgan was flying. She wasn't standing in the building's window as it appeared in the video, and then Phil sees the newspaper photo with Morgan by chance and tells them that the one in the photo with Morgan is Vivian, Darren's wife, so he prefers that they go to Darren to talk to him. At that time, a solution appeared between Leonard's personality and he and Max asked Darren to. They talk to him about the history of the town because they have a project, and as soon as they enter the house, Max asks Doreen to go to the bathroom, and we know that she wants to go into Carter's room, and she finds her diary and takes a picture, and she notices a paper with Vivian's name written on it, so she takes it to read it, and at the same time, Ben is sitting with Doreen. Doreen appears to not believe him and feels that he is not her husband, so Ben tries to tell him that he is like his daughter Carter and needs needs answers to understand what is happening, so they sell Doreen that these answers have a price and he is not the right person to answer, and they know that he really wants to see Carter, so Ben tries to Carter so that he lets Darren see her and fulfill what he wants, and then Max goes to Morgan's house with Ben after she learned her house address from Carter's diary. When Morgan opens the door for them, she is shocked that they know who she is and that they know Carter. Ben tells her that he understood the meaning of the symbol and that it means the word we, so he let them in. Morgan visits the house and tells them about Yitz and that he was a student of Vivian and learned how to control his abilities, but he was nervous and did not like to learn or take advice from anyone. When Vivian decided that she would not do anything again, Yitz went crazy and decided to take revenge on Vivian through her daughter Carter. He was able to make fun of himself, a very strong dark force, and it is difficult for anyone to stand in its way, but they were able to take control of it and its power and stop it. Ben is reassured that there is no danger now and he must enjoy his life, his age, and his school, but Ben is not convinced by her words and asks if her words are really true, what would make Carter send them her story so they can search for it. They go to her and reach her, then Toot is gone at that time, and they know that it is late and they have to leave, and when Ben and Max leave, Morgan sends a message to Carter and asks him why he gave Ben and Max a picture of her and her mother, so he leaves her. She did that, and this makes Morgan more afraid. Meanwhile, Philo enters Ben's darkroom and sees pictures of Morgan and the things about her, Carter and Vivian. I was very surprised at that time. One day at school, Ben used his ability to change his voice and change the voices of his classmates. Everyone was upset except Jason, who was annoyed that Ben knows how to imitate voices, so Ben decides to annoy him more and lowers his voice and makes everyone laugh at him. At home, Max is upset with Ben because Jason got into a fight with her friend Danielle because of him, and he won't take her to the dance party because she laughed at him with them today. Ben tells her that Jason deserves what happened to him. The next day, Max discovers that Kenny wants to go to the dance with her, but she is embarrassed because she does not think of going to the party. Then Danielle deliberately makes fun of Max and mocks her because she is upset about what happened to her because of Ben. Ben gets angry with Max because she did not respond to her, and he knows that she should have responded to Danielle and made fun of her. And then Ben decides to turn into Max to go to Danielle and make fun of her and get Max's rights, but unfortunately, at that moment, Julia arrives at school and begs Max, so Ben decides to go and ride with the car and finds out that Julia had agreed with Max to buy the party dress. Together, he goes to Kenny, who is still in Max's form, to talk to him about the party, but they are surprised that he goes with him to the party, so he tells him that time has passed. When he goes to Danielle to confront her, he finds her gloating over Max and thinking that she deserves it. Meanwhile, Darren makes a movie with him and takes a picture of Vivian with Morgan, and they find out he found this part of the newspaper in Ben's darkroom, and the strange thing is that Morgan has another picture of herself in the middle of the storm, and her appearance has not changed, as if she has not aged a single day, even though the difference between the two pictures is 30 years. So the one who was with him yesterday is the same Ben, and he thinks that the matter is in front of a movie, and he pretends that it is not. He left her, and then he walked with Julia because he was still in Max's shape, and when his mother called him, he answered her, so he called Julia because he thought she was his daughter, and she talked to Elizabeth and said to her mom, so she left her car and went down to buy something. And Den was in the street and approaches Max and talks to him and tells her that her father was with him a while ago and shows him pictures of Morgan that he found in his darkroom between. And it is clear that he understood that the one who came to God yesterday and talked to him was Ben, not Leaner. After that, in the dress shop, Julia tries to find any dress that Max likes, but because she is between Max and he sees all the dresses in the same shape and he doesn't know what to choose. And at the same time, Max is sitting in front of the school waiting for her mother and is surprised that she is late and sends her a message to know where she is, and at the same time she finds her father calling her and asking why she told Elizabeth to talk to mom in. While she was rejecting this at first, then her mother replies to her message and tells her that she is waiting to try on the dress, so she gives it to Max and understands that Ben is impersonating her and is with her mother now, so she loves him and enters Ben's fitting room. And she quarrels with him because of her appearance, so he sells it to her so that he can take her right from Daniel, but her mother suddenly appears and he doesn't know how to act, and this makes Max more angry, and she quarrels with him, and they know that she doesn't trust him anymore, and she leaves and walks away. And when Ben returns home, he discovers that Max packed her things and is going to sit with her mother, so he is upset his mother quarrels with him, but he doesn't answer her. He goes to the garden where he met Carter and calls her. He collapses, so she shows him and tells him that she needs him. The next day, he is sad and upset because Max is ignoring him and doesn't sit with him at school, and they don't talk. At night, his mother talks to him and tells him that she understands that there is a problem between them. Ben said that this is normal because siblings get annoyed with each other and he has to be patient a little bit until Max calms down and they talk. Then Ben goes to the mall and there he meets Carter as they agreed together, so that he trains him in the middle of the crowd and teaches him how to focus and choose the form that he can easily impersonate. And Ben is in the transformation, but he comes to a strange young man and he is unable to transform into his form, and the strangest thing thing is that this young man can see Carter and runs after her in Beirut. Ben is behind them to help Carter, but she knows that this young man wants to attack Ben. So she gets wet and moves to another place, regretting that she was training Ben in a public place because he hasn't come yet, and she apologizes to him at that moment and leaves. After that, we see Darren and Wu looking at the surveillance cameras in the mall because the mall security reported a chase between a young man and a young boy, and at that moment, Darren is shocked when he finds Ben. He appears in the surveillance cameras and goes to him to talk to him and finds out that he saw what happened in the mall he was in addition to the fact that he is sure that he can transform into other people's forms, and says that he is trying to help him to protect him and he must be honest with him. So Ben is angry with him and they know that he cannot do anything, and after that he goes between Carter is in her father's form and knows what happened, and that her father knows that he will transform, and forces her to understand what is happening because he needs to know how to act. Then they take her to Morgan and make him see her appearance and her weakness after he takes her power from her. She and Morgan repeat that they tell Ben about the secret that made Yitz harm Carter. Vivian gave her power before Yitz stole it, so her power is now greater than anyone else's, and Yitz wants this power to take over the world. When Ben finds out from Carter that she didn't send the picture to Max, he gets very scared and realizes that Yitz is still chasing Max to get to him, so he goes to her and tries to reconcile with her so that they can be friends again and everything, but Max ignores every word he says, which makes Ben walk away and leave her. 2 months later, Ben is walking in the street taking pictures with his camera, and he suddenly notices a drawing on the ground that says, "We need you." So he keeps coming back home and finds the same sentence on the bathroom mirror, so he wipes it off and it comes back. The next day, Darren learns from his colleague that the young man who was in the mall and Ben was running after him is named Alistair Morris. The strange thing is that he is imprisoned in Darren's house at that time. At school, Jason is sitting there harassing Ben and making food fall on him because he makes everyone laugh at him, and all this happens while Max watches silently and goes to Ben to help him like he used to help him when Jason was hitting him. At night, during dinner, we learn that Maxie has returned to live with her father. At that time, he asks if she had fun with her mother, so Elizabeth leaves her to open any other topic. They talk about it, and she talks about the dance party, so he tells her that he is going to the party with his friends, and when Phil asks Max if she's going to the party with Ken or not, she gets angry and upset and leaves the food and gets up. And at that moment, Phil tries to lighten the mood and asks us about the pictures. The one who was filming it in the house got angry at him and asked him not to enter his darkroom again, and he also made the food and got up, and when he entered his room, he found a book he had with a letter from his father in it, and at that moment, his mother came in and talked to him about what happened between him and Phil, and that he had to make a greater effort than this in order to be able to. He approaches Phil, and the next day, Ben is still upset and talks to Phil in a bad way, so Phil convinces him that he has the right to be upset with him and that he is not angry with him because of his behavior. In prison, Darren is sitting with Alistair and tells him about what happened in the mall and that he appears in the surveillance cameras in Alistair's house, and he says to Darren this is not him because he is imprisoned, as you can see, and at that moment we know that Hitz is impersonating Alistair so that he can move around freely, and suddenly at that same moment, Alistair laughs sarcastically and tells Darren that he knows who Hitz is because he gives him his appearance with his approval, and it becomes clear to Alistair that he is a strange person and has evil like Yates, in addition to the fact that he scares him and they know that Yates will not leave him alone and that he is looking for him. After that, Darren goes to Morgan and talks to him about what he knew and that Yates is impersonating a prisoner named Alistair Morse, so she thanks Morgan for his help, and at that time Carter appears in front of Ben, and you know that she really needs him and that he is the one who will be able to confront Yates with his strength, and she wants him to stay by her side so that she can confront him and help him in deceiving Yates. So he gets angry at Ben because he understood from her words that she wants him to be bait and leave and go at that time, and after that she goes to Max's house and talks to her, and she knows that Ben is in danger and all of them, they need him, but he doesn't listen to any one of them. She is the only person he can talk to. At night, Ben is shocked when he finds Yates at home with his mother. Suddenly, Ben wakes up terrified. We know that he was dreaming. Elizabeth runs to him to check on him because she got scared when she heard him screaming, and then Maxwell goes to Ben and talks to him at that time and asks him to go to Morgan. So Morgan stays now because he thought about the matter and found himself wrong, and when Ben goes to Morgan, he finds Carter and Wyatt there, and with them a girl named Rhonda like them, and she kidnaps Morgan at that time. How do they attack Hitz to destroy her and take her from him? All the power he stole, and at that time Max fights with Wyatt because he was belittling Ben, and then Morgan talks to Max alone, and she knows that she is part of what is happening and that Ben's support helped him a lot, and when Ben returns home, he sits and talks to Phil to apologize to him for the way he treated him, and at school, Ben decides that Jason defends anyone who shakes him and faces him himself after that, and he is not afraid. The next day, Ben goes to Alistair's house where Yates lives and is with Carter, Max, and the rest, but unfortunately, they do not find Yates in the house. After that, he is in Phil's house. Elizabeth's party is happening and everyone is attending it. At that moment, Julia is talking to Ben, and yelling at him to ruin the relationship between Kenny and Max. Ben is surprised because this didn't happen and goes to ask Max why she told her mother that, because this isn't true. Max is also surprised because she didn't tell her mother anything and goes to fight with her, but at that moment Owen tells Ben that Julia, Max's mother, was in front of him the whole time and he didn't see her talking to him at all, so Ben takes the time and goes to the dark room to send a message to Morgan and finds out that Netz is at his house. But at that same moment Phil enters and they find out that he knows everything about him. He knows his secret that he tries to hide all the time and asks him to tell him where Carter is hiding it, so he prefers a solution in the form of a movie, so I yell at him to stay away from them. But Yates tells him that he will not leave Carter alone until he takes all her power. Suddenly he turns into a Laster against his will and writes that Yates impersonated him, so Hitz attacks him and takes his power and takes his mobile phone. At that moment Morgan calls a girl who pretends to be Ben and tells her that Yates is going to the school dance and he wants her to go to the dance and bring Carter with her. The school is still in Ben's shape and he is with Max and the rest of his friends. As soon as Morgan arrives with Carter and Rhonda White, Ben is waiting for them. Suddenly Max comes and tells them that the one in front of them is Ben and that Ben is not here. Ben attacks her with his strength and scares her. At the same moment, the real Ben arrives at the school after he returned to his normal form again, and at that moment he protected Jason from a wood board that was about to fall on him. In the house, he tried to regain his normal form and Bella was in front of him. There were two Carters, not one. Darren came to protect his daughter, but Carter attacked him and they entered into she is with him, and then she tricks Max Yates and wears Ben's jacket to make him chase her, and as soon as he gets close to her, Carter attacks him and grabs him. And Ben enters to protect her from Yates, so Carter's people grab Yates as well, and at that moment Yates turns into Ben's form and they get married so that they can take away from him the power that he stole until he becomes weak. And he loses me. He sees Darren, his daughter, and he hugs her with longing and love, and he is happy that he has seen her last, and we know that Morge keeps Yates in a secret place so that he does not come out again and slanders her, and at night Carter is with her father in the house, and you know that she knows how to bring her mother back again, so Darren is surprised at that moment, and at the same time, he was sleeping in his room and suddenly felt a terrible power in his body affecting him, and he got tired at that time when he saw his body glowing blue, and he understood that the power was transferred to him, and thus he would be the one with the greatest power. The most dangerous of all is that the series ends with the possibility of a second part, but it hasn't been released yet. A piece of advice to all the people watching: if you find a friend who has things between him and you that he doesn't remember, this means that he might be exhausted or has Alzheimer's. The second one is normal. These are just TV series. Peace.